some pretty interesting views and insightful thoughts from the panel. I think from our own experience, and indeed some of the work that I've been involved in over the years, it's been very interesting to me to see that how all these things are so intricately connected in the most common attacks that we see and defend against in cyber world every day today. In addition to the protective work that we do, so protecting companies and the monitoring that we do, we also help organizations test. So red teaming, where with the company's permission, organization's permission, we will target that company and our experts will launch an attack, a non-destructive attack, but an attack to test the defenses the company has in place. And now it won't surprise anyone to learn that we have a 100% success rate of getting in. And the most common method or the hops that we take is compromising the identity. Compromising the user. So we target the user through means of social engineering and clicking links and phishing attachments, and clicking links in phishing or through malicious attachments. So target the user. Then using their identity, move through the network, and then test whether the SOC can actually detect us in that instance. So I thought that was very apt in how those areas that we covered today are connected in terms of real world instances and what organizations are seeing. But please, some questions from the audience. We've got some roaming mics. If you'd like to just raise your hand for a question. Otherwise, while you think about your question, we'll go to some of the online questions we have. Munya, the first one I'd like to pick on for you is that the question is that when you talk about the human aspect of cybersecurity risk and the education for the user, and doing that in the right way, how does the culture of that organization come into play? So how does the pressures from the board or management and how they view cybersecurity and the human aspect, how can that affect or have an impact on the effectiveness of a cybersecurity strategy for that human aspect?
It's a great question, and culture is incredibly important. Culture has a huge impact on how your human risk factors actually then come to bear in terms of the risk posture of the organization. If it is a culture of fear in the organization, that can have a bearing on things like engagement with the security program. It can have an impact on confidence for the user. If somebody is not confident but they do the right thing, that's not a great thing for the organization. If they're not confident and they do the wrong thing, that's also terrible. If they're confident and they do the wrong thing, that's not a good thing. So we really want to get our people in a place where they are confident and doing the right things most of the time, and culture is a huge part of that. But there's also some nuance. The most effective security awareness training programs that we encounter are those that contemplate things like geography, language, not just translation, but actually interpretation of what the content might be, because a way to communicate certain messages or encouragement as far as security is concerned is very different if you're in Southeast Asia or if you're in South America, or even if you're in North America. So people that are running these programs have got an incredible challenge on their hands, in the sense that, one, they're often regarded as the Department of No, and there's a negative sentiment of the security organization in general. And then on top of that, they're having to consider where people are, what languages they speak, and how they relate to some of those disciplinary type of interventions that may come from the security organization. So it is important, and we run we've got a culture tool that we have in the platform as well, so you can actually assess some of that using the CybSafe platform and get a sense of geography as to where you are as an organization.
Excellent, thank you. And there was sort of a connected question from a different user who asked about, there have been a number of sort of awareness campaigns being run by national and local governments, and increasingly it's becoming a topic at school. How does CybSafe see that interaction with the generic education or traditional education system, and how could that benefit when people do get into the workplace one day? Is that something that you guys consider?
Absolutely. It's one of our CEO, Ozalashe, it's one of his areas of passion. We give the tool away for free to schools. So it comes as a downloadable application that you can have, and in the commercial version of the application you can actually share some of those micro-learning items of content with family and friends. So we really believe that this relationship with technology and being able to use technology without fear is something that should start as soon as the baby's playing with the iPad, and we've designed our product and platform to be able to actually be available to those people as they start their education journey.
That's fantastic. And just to add to it, I think just yesterday actually, the Cyber First, many of you may be familiar, it's the program that the NCSC run in this space. So children from 12 years upwards, and they had a celebration event at Westminster yesterday where, you know, they're heading towards 100,000 people that they've interacted with. And for me, I'm a dad of 2 boys, 2 girls, and you know, they're all under 10, but I really love them all to look on this career that we've chosen in this room, right, as being hugely rewarding, making a difference, and also financially, you know, you'd hope that kind of they can do well in life. So I think kind of on your side, giving the tool for free. We in Microsoft, we do similar. We support NCSC and there's Microsoft Learn. There's a bunch of resources out there, but I think for all of us, I think the more we can do to encourage youngsters, it's not the scary domain that some may think, and not just that. I think whatever person's skill set and background, they bring something to it that's needed.
Excellent. Thank you very much. We've got a question there. If you wouldn't mind just standing up, saying your name, and then ask your question, please.
Hi, Andy Hill. So it's an open question to the panel, really. It feels to me that perhaps 2FA and end user training are probably two of the top 3 things that you want to get right in a customer in a business environment early on. Would you agree? And if so, I like lists of 3. What would you say would be your 3rd go-to?
Yeah, so I guess I'll take it with the mention of 2FA. So before that, I don't know about having your kids go in an industry where 3 out of the 4 have no hair on the stage.
Yeah, sure. Mine's great.
Save a fortune on hairdressing.
Yeah, so like I said in the presentation, 2FA is ubiquitous training. It's essential. We have to do it. You know, interesting to kind of look at the third, whether it's a technology, whether it's a process. You know, what is it? I kind of like the idea of culture, actually, to what we were just talking about. One of the things that sticks out in my head is a conversation I had with a CISO of a large automotive manufacturer, and we said, well, why are you doing it this way? Why are you approaching it the way that we had talked about? When you've got 6 other solutions on the shelf in your inventory that you can use, and he told us to solve the problem, and it was a compliance problem. And the reaction, he says, because I'll get less hate mail from my end users, right? And so I think a lot of times we're the bad guys in security. One of the other deputy CISOs that I liked in terms of the way that he was looking at culture for security was, what can I give back to the business? What can I give back, right? Because they're always taking away with security. And so it's just an interesting framing of his initiatives for giving back to the organization. So I'd probably say maybe it's a little fluffy, but maybe culture, since we just talked about it.
Any views from the panel?
I mean, I'd echo the culture. I was talking with Neil earlier, and we were talking about authentication, the challenges, and Neil was talking about the fact that they have the challenge of a lot of BYOD devices going out of date, and therefore creating a risk, and them having to manage that in the environment. And he was explaining how one particular exec was getting quite frustrated being told they're going to have to do something about that. And he sort of explained to them, well, think about your own bank account and the risk you have there. Made it very personal to the individual about that risk, and not just being about a business thing. But I think we all have to feel that we have that ownership. You know, it's something Mark called out, you know, it's not CISO's job of doing security. We all have to do security. You know, yesterday sitting there getting Authenticator popping up, you know, and seeing how that's changed. That, you know, I don't now just get somebody to click, I've got to put a number in, you know, and it's using my Face ID on my phone to really kind of double check. And I'm actually positive about that, because if someone is going to try to abuse my identity and do something that I'm not aware of, I like the idea that there are those checks to stop that. And so I do think culture and embracing security because of the impact and the importance of it is a key one as a third item.
And then if I said one more, and of course the Microsoft guy is going to say this, but hey, it's got to be the cloud, right? Because it puts that vast network of compute and capability to work for you. You know, there was a reason why when Russia invaded Ukraine, the first thing Ukraine did was move 16 of the government ministries to the cloud overnight. And it wasn't just us, multiple vendors in this space. And that's hugely important because when they're up against a cyber power, they would have been decimated had they stayed in-house on premises. And your presentation earlier on was totally true. I totally understand that it's a journey, not everything goes to the cloud overnight. And there's valid reasons, there's legacy there's a lot of complexity that you have to deal with. But to carry on that journey and that push, I think, if I was to add a third or fourth to the list, I'd point to that.
Well, thank you very much. Very, very, very insightful and helpful. We've got a question from online. Drew, I think it falls probably best in your category, where it says that the need to secure identity is obvious to many. Everybody talks about it. People talk about having a zero trust policy, but where do we really start? And I know you very quickly on your slide earlier nicely showed how you can start very quickly by doing a bit of assessment, but perhaps a bit more around that. Where should organizations start and how does Silverfort fit into that?
Yeah, it's really the low-hanging fruit, and again, sounds obvious, but it's the low-hanging fruit. It's the highest risk items, and in identity, at least in what we see, first of all, it's just getting visibility. You can't protect, you can't secure what you can't see. And what's surprising is even the identity teams that own the identity infrastructure, cloud and on-prem, don't have the visibility that you would expect into authentications going on within their environment. So I think that's one. The second is again fairly obvious, but privileged users. The privileged users, these are the identities that the attackers are going after, whether they're human or non-human privileged user identities. This is the lowest hanging fruit, as evidenced again by the cyber insurers who have a very strong incentive to help their companies be secure. So I think those are probably the easy low-hanging fruit places to start.
Thanks. And then we had a subsequent question where somebody just said, what about operational technology? So in that sort of thinking about identity in the IT, in the information technology world, you touched on some of the challenges that you have there with service accounts and others. Yeah. How are you guys thinking about, or how should organizations think about the operational technology, those that have factories or machines in their operations?
Yeah, so OT systems, back to the topic, Ukraine, right? This isn't the first time that Russia has attacked Ukraine. They've been attacking Ukraine for years and attacking the cyber domain and really refining their techniques and coming back every year with better and better techniques because they're trying and trying. And some of those have been to take down the electrical grids, have been to take down the infrastructure, the critical infrastructure, the OT systems. And so when we talk about that, that's really, I think, back to Sir Graham's point about this is where it's at. This is where it's at because with a few clicks, they could literally take down our water, our electricity, all of our critical infrastructure systems. So OT is a tough one because these systems oftentimes are very old. And it's almost security by obscurity in some cases because they're so old. But from a criticality standpoint, those are definitely top of the list.
Thank you very much. And then a question that's come in around AI, so I'll put it to the panel, but probably Paul and Steve, it's aimed at you. Is AI a challenge to our sustainable future, not only in relation to our jobs, but also as it begins to make choices of its own outside of its intended purpose?
Happy to start. It's a really important question. It's, our ethos around AI is that even if you look at, we talked here about security co-pilot, right? It's not autopilot. The human ingenuity, the human directing that intelligence is still hugely important and frankly, as far as we see, always will be. Now, I think, we talked a bit about threat actors then using it in anger. It's quite interesting where, there's alliances, particularly in the Western world, at a governmental level. There's 150 tech organizations all signed up to an accord about ethical use of AI, and we're committed to that. And certainly within Microsoft, our Brad Smith is the name of he's the kind of next to Satya, and he is really our conscience, our ambassador, our DNA around all these topics, and it's just so hugely important. We wouldn't want this capability to be led out of some of those other nation states who share a very different worldview and different perspective. And so it's not to downplay it because, who knows in the future. You look at WannaCry that impacted the NHS here a number of years ago, came out of North Korea. So there's, a country perhaps less developed than the West, and yet they happen upon this technological advancement, and we know what it did to our health service. So I think it's incumbent on all of us to remain, to continue to innovate across the board for sure, to try and stay ahead of that threat, and that AI, that there are guardrails, the government AI Safety Summit here, key part of that narrative. And it's actually fantastic to see the UK leading, in that thought process is so important. Steve, did you view?
Yeah, I guess my view is, how do we look back to give us a view of going forward? We're supposed to be in this fourth industrial revolution, and we think of some of the comments were made in the last one, going through the industrial revolution, where the Luddites were smashing the machines, and people were saying if we got on a train and it went above 30 miles an hour, you're going to suffocate. And where would we be if we didn't take that leap? So of course there are risks, but I think we've got to look at the potential, and if we don't do it, what are we missing out on? People are going to do it, and if it's only the bad people that do it, then that's not going to help us. So I think those indicators of the change that we need to have, we've got to be positive about that. Yes, be cautious. Yes, be controlled, but be positive. And there was an article in FT Edit that looked at the reason why the UK was such a kind of force in that industrial revolution. And they looked at what was happening in the community, and they compared Spain, one of the other major powers at the time, to the UK. And in all the text, all the language, the UK was much more positive. It was much more forward-looking in its mentality, and Spain was much more negative. And then you had the curve of where both countries were in growing through that industrial revolution, and Spain was 200 years behind. And so it's that potential. And I think one of the things that I always think is disappointing to see is people look at AI and they go, oh, it's about cost. It's about removing jobs. It's about saving money. If all we do is a cost exercise, we failed. The potential there to do more, to do those things we haven't even imagined yet, is what we need to embrace. But of course, doing it, with the right controls and the right focus.
Munya, and another question came in connected to that. Is that an opportunity for us to put AI in as part of that education process that I know training and knowledge transfer isn't all the answer, but is that an opportunity that you guys are looking at already to bring AI in as part of security of the human?
100%. So in the second half of this year, CybSafe will release CybSafe Gain, which is going to leverage those LLMs to be able to give personalized guidance, leveraging some of that power, that kind of at machine speed support to users based on what's going on inside the environment and what we're fetching from the rest of the systems that are connected. So we definitely see the power and potential to leverage that kind of tooling within the learning opportunities as well.
Thank you. So, Graham?
Yeah. I got a sort of curveball, which is time. Because I tell you what, I've really enjoyed today. I thought, I'm going to get bored shitless sitting here, but I got through it almost instantly. I was really bored listening to myself, but it improved immediately after that with the speakers we had. But there's an interesting, because behavioral change, if I look at my old organization, the secret sauce to the old Special Forces gang was trust, shared consciousness, empowered execution, and common goal. And it took forever to build the relationship, the friendship, and the comradeship, and the trust to be able to have that sort of level. I remember Stan McChrystal once turning around and saying, when somebody said, hey boss, what level of do with empowered execution? And he said, look, if you get in the ground and you find out the order I gave you was wrong, execute the order I should have given you. Yeah, that's a real ballsy call. But my question is this, because I can see, and it's come out today very clearly, which is technological change can happen super quick. Human behavioral change is super slow. So we have a two-speed problem. Yeah, and I'd just be really interested in the panel to sort of try and make some sense out of a pretty crap question that I asked and unraveling in this, because I sense that to get that trust, that sort of sense that hey, this AI or whatever it may be can do it, and then have the cultural change, which in effect we're looking at earlier on, is a two-speed problem they just don't match. And I'd be interested to see whether I've just not been drinking enough and should be. Thanks.
Glad we entertained you.
I'd be super happy to take a quick stab at the slow speed of the human. I think we do need a kind of paradigm shift as far as helping people. Great examples are, for example, I'm not wearing my watch today, but my watch from time to time will just tell me to stand up periodically. It doesn't then come along with information about circulation of blood and the kind of health benefits of why that should be the case. It simply tells me that from time to time I should stand up. And actually, I do that. And what we've done is, as a community, we've relied on the fact that if we give people loads of information about what we need them to do, that's going to cause them to do the thing that we need them to do most of the time. I think we can design security programs that actually just help people to do the thing and then give them air cover with knowledge as and when we need it. But if we expect people to get deep understanding of every single aspect of the threat landscape and then do the right thing, I think we're going to be behind. I think we're going to be slow. So we need to give them these things that tell them, do this right now, don't do that right now. And then if you need to understand more about that, actually I'm going to give you bite-sized information that explains why that was the right decision to make or that was the wrong turn to take. If we try to do the knowledge thing in full upfront, we're going to be left behind by the technological advances.
Yeah, let me flip it on its head for a second, because we probably all, let's take voice recognition, right? Didn't work for 10 or 15 years. Now, I mean, it's not a Microsoft product, but I have an Alexa in the kitchen. It knows my voice as distinct from my wife and my 4 kids. So there's something there about, like our chief exec, he talks about, often we overestimate what can be achieved in 2 years from a tech perspective, but underestimate what can be achieved over a 10-year window. So there's some scenarios where the human's gone, of course it's voice, why can't the machine understand what the hell I'm telling it? But then the tech kind of leapfrogs and catches up. When I look at AI though, I think there's some other aspects here that maybe we haven't seen so much before. It's a leveler, for sure. Like we've done, very early days, as we all know, but we've done some research here in London with one of the universities whereby, and I'm not talking security for a second, more put the tools in their hands that'll record their meetings, tell them their actions, follow up, do the basics, all very intuitive, logical stuff. And actually what we see is the top performers may only get marginal gains from that, because perhaps they're already, well on top of their remit and very effective in what they do. But your middle section, really leapfrog. They don't have to have all the depth of intelligence. I love your point, Munya, is that that's almost kept back in the background behind them. And then if I go to what we're here today to talk about, take, in a SOC context, we know less than 15% of signal is valid. There's a lot of noise, right? So to put our talented people, and probably expensive services as well, to best use, well, here comes the tech to screen out the noise, to distill down what's really important. And it's not, I think your point is valid. There will be scenarios, I think, where I feel it in Microsoft, the pace of announcements and innovation of the past 6-9 months has been like nothing I've seen. I'm there 15 years, so we have this to contend with, but it's exciting. And the use cases, I just think there's such a future ahead that, we probably can't imagine in 5 years what all the use cases will be.
Thank you very much. A big thank you to our panel. Thank you very much. And thank you for your contribution today.